I'm Hugh Best. I'm an attorney. Practice mostly personal injury work, family law, and immigration.
Okay, then. So, since my main focus is on immigration, could you please tell me the process in which um, a non-immigrant or someone who doesn't have his or her papers, the process they could go through in trying to become legal in this country?
Well, people become legal in a couple different ways. There's, um, I said, two major divisions. There's those who come through family, and others who come through employment. Um, I would say about 90% probably come through family petitions. Uh, Now, family petitions, if your parents could file for you, or your brother and sister, um, or children for the parents. It all also depend on the status of the what's called the petitioner. The petitioner is the person who files an application for someone else, and that other person is called a beneficiary. The petitioner is a citizen. A citizen can file for their spouse, can file for their children. They can file for their spouse's children if the children are under the age of 18 at the time of marriage. They also can file for their brothers and sisters, and they can file for their parents. Uh, the other classification of individuals are permanent residents. A permanent resident is a person who is given a visa to stay in the United States, and they're allowed to work here. It can be taken away if that person violates the law. Permanent residents could file for their spouse and their unmarried children. Uh, Now, also we have, as I say, you can do it through a job, and that's called labor. Normally, jobs are divided in two areas. You have those who must submit labor certifications, and then there are a list or category of jobs that are deemed in demand. And those individuals who are applying for jobs that are in demand are exempt from the labor certification process. Most people have to go through labor cert. And basically what labor cert does is you have, before you could submit your application to the Immigration Service, you submit your application through the Department of Labor. And the Department of Labor then demand that you do a number of things. You have to advertise the job. You have to advertise the job at what's called prevailing wages. Those are the wages that the typical American, based on the education or work experience, will be paid.
That's
And
if they work for you.
if you intend to hire them to work for you,
Okay.
okay. If the person has status, let's say you have a job, and if the person is currently working for you, let's say the person may be a student and allowed to work after a year after they graduate from school, and you want to open that job then to students, you first have to advertise it through the Department of Labor, and it has to be certified that no American citizens qualify for that job. Um, then there's another category of jobs where you don't have to do the labor cert. The government has already determined there's a demand in that field. For example, uh, registered nurses are in demand. Physical therapists are in demand. Um, and a few other categories of people who are in demand. So if you meet that requirement, you don't do the labor cert. It's assumed that there's then many American citizens are not available for the job, and you just start your process through the immigration department with proof that you are exempt from the certification process.
Okay.
So that's basically the categories in which people have. Now there's another third category besides family
Work.
and work. There's another category for people who are called uh, refugees and political asylum. Refugees are individuals who are fleeing countries where there may be war and other things to that effect. The United Nations may have deemed them to be persons without a home, and the American government will allow them to come here. When they come, they apply for status, and they're given a green card, and then eventually can apply for the citizenship. Other individuals may just show up at the airport, claim that they are in fear of political persecution in their own country, and they can make an application for asylum. Um, most people go through a very difficult process to get this. The exception to the rule would be a person, let's say, from Cuba. Once a person from Cuba gets here, they're entitled to it because they're deemed that Cuba is a land of persecution. Um, you have a case of political asylum. It all depends on what's the relationship between the American government and that country.
That country, okay.
And if the government of America is hostile, then you have a good case. If the government is friendly, even if the government is a brutal government, you're going to have a difficult case. So that's the various things that people do. Some time ago, to develop a new area within political asylum, which is separate and apart from the issue of political persecution, that had to do with female circumcision. And the individuals that they get their status also is a form of political asylum. You'll say, well, I'm afraid that if I return to whatever area from the world, that I'll be forced to undergo a procedure, and that has become a basis now for political asylum.
Well, that's good. And what about those people who actually they come here as visitors, and then they stay till after their visa expires and they're still here? Is there a way for them to actually become legal? Like, if there's any way, a process they can go through to become legal?
Yeah, it's still the same process for them. So you have to divide people who are here in two categories. The individuals who came and the government allowed them to enter the country. That's one category of persons. They will normally have a little white card, which is called I-94. That's you be on the airplane or on the ship. When you came to America, most people come by airplane. Or if you come through Canada, they'll give you a little card, they stamp it, the government say you can stay here 30 days, 90 days, 180 days, whatever amount of time. That's one category of persons. The other category will be individuals who abscond over the border. By that, they enter the United States without government inspection. The government treats these two people very differently. If you are admitted into the country and you overstayed your welcome, under the current law, you are barred from adjusting your status here for a period of 10 years. Let me rephrase that. If you overstay your welcome by more than 6 months, but less than a year, you're barred for 3 years. If you overstay more than a year, you're barred for 10 years. The exception to that rule is if you're sponsored by an American citizen spouse or by your minor children. Okay. Sorry, the minor children can't really follow you. So you got to be sponsored by your children who are citizens or by your spouse. So for many people who have overstayed a visa, the only way for them to become a permanent resident is if they're married to a U.S. citizen and therefore deemed an immediate relative of a U.S. citizen, or their children file for them. There's also a provision in the law that allow you to show exceptional circumstances, and you could do that and apply for a waiver. It's very difficult to get the waiver. The exceptional circumstances are not to you, the person who is the immigrant. It will be to your relatives.
Who is the permanent who is the citizen?
Who is the citizen or permanent. For example, if your brother or sister filed for you, you're not an immediate relative. You will be barred. However, if you could show extraordinary circumstances to your citizen brother, then you could, get a waiver. For example, let's say your brother may be blind or dependent on you, or something extraordinary. He needs help.
Yeah, it actually has to be really serious.
Serious. Yeah, they don't grant it easily. Okay, got you some major problems, and they say, okay, you're a benefit to this individual because you're providing for them, you're caring for them, whatever the situation is. The other category of individuals are those who abscond across the border, who the government didn't admit into the country. Those individuals can never adjust their status in the United States under any circumstances. They must leave. There's no help for them. Even if they're married to a United States citizen, can't help. If their children are born here and the children want to sponsor them, cannot help. If you enter this country without inspection, this applies primarily to people from Latin America who come across the Mexican border, a lot of Mexicans. there's nothing that can be done for you. So those individuals have to leave.
Oh. So that's why they have this serious immigration problems with them.